Hi, I'm Mitch Gallagher from Sweetwater. I am joined today by a very special guest in our studios here. This is Peter Rodriguez from Heritage Audio. It's great to have you here all the way from Spain.
Great to be here, Mitch.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
Have you been to Sweetwater before?
Yeah, I was. Yeah, I've been a few times, but actually it was over 3 years last time I was here for obvious reasons.
Right.
So it's been really exciting. It feels like it's the first time, as exciting as, as the first time here. So
There's always new things going on, new construction, new buildings.
You guys are always surprising.
Yeah.
It's like, you're doing a great job.
Yeah, well, we wouldn't want to be boring. We always want to keep things exciting and moving forward.
Of course, yeah. You're doing a great job. Yeah.
And speaking of, man, I've been so excited because I've had this 670 in my office. We're going to spend some time talking about this as well as the MotorCity EQ. But let's talk a little bit about your company. You're an engineer, a producer, you're a music guy, and a technology guy. Heritage Audio started somewhere around 2011, correct?
Yeah, exactly. So we actually turned, it was our 10th anniversary last year, but we couldn't celebrate properly.
Of course.
Because of, So yeah, I started, I have an engineering background that helped me a lot when I was starting with the company and just making all the designs. But yeah, I was a music producer and engineer for over 15 years. Mm-hmm. By 2007, I decided to move onto the other side of the business. I had kids, and I needed a different approach to life. So,
right.
and I had this kind of hobby of building my own equipment, and I decided to turn the hobby into my day job. So I started with a few products, and it was a passion actually that led me to what is the company is these days. So really exciting, and we have all the support of you guys, and it's amazing.
Yeah, it's a wonderful partnership. I think the first time we met was probably at an AES show or a NAMM show, and I was so impressed with your focus on the kind of classic pro audio products and really bringing those back with a lot of authenticity.
Oh yeah, those classic designs sound so well. They were so well conceived by real engineers that I wanted to bring that sound into the way of working in the studios of today. So it was just not recreating the classic designs, but just thinking about how guys work now and how to adapt those designs and bring new features and blend all that together. And I think people is really happy with the result, and I'm really enjoying the ride of bringing all these new features with the classic sound to the studios of nowadays.
And since then, of course, you have modular systems, you have 500 series systems, you've got desktop systems, preamps, monitor controllers, the Successor, the Brit Strip, so many great products. And we've got two of your newest products here on the table next to us. The Motown EQ, or MotorCity EQ, and the Hairchild. There's a 660 and a 670.
Yeah, it's been quite a challenging design for these, especially for the Hairchilds, the 670 and the 660. It took a while to figure out all the components, all the design, all the details, all the small details. Finding the Newell stock tubes, we had to source tubes from from surpluses from all over the United States. We got some military tubes from Kentucky, Nebraska. We found a warehouse in France with tubes for the NATO. So it was kind of exciting. It was challenging but exciting. And then at the same time, we had to source all the custom transformers and make sure all the details were exactly the same as in the original, because otherwise we're getting problems. So yeah, it took a while. It took over 2 years overall, finding the right components, understanding every single piece in the puzzle, and making the puzzle right. And the result, I'm really happy with the result. We're getting a lot of buzz, and it seems like the sales engineers are loving the product already. So it makes me feel like quite happy with the result. Actually.
Yeah. I mentioned I've actually had this in my office, in my studio for a week or so. I had the 670 and the 660, and man, there just is nothing like that Fairchild compressor limiter thing. It's Obviously, it's compression, it's limiting, but it's just different than what some of the others do.
Oh yeah, it sounds completely different. It has a system where the tubes are actually taking care of the compression. It's a special type of tubes which is called vari-move tubes. So actually the compression is taking a place on the tubes. There's no optical, there's no VCAs, it's just the tube taking care of that. So the audio path is really simple. It's just an input transformer, these vari-move tubes, an output transformer, and that's all. It's like kind of like a minimalistic approach to that. And then there's a sidechain circuit that is also tube-based, that in order to make the attack fast and the release fast, it has the power. It's basically something similar to a Tweet Deluxe, just making that sidechain signal so powerful, so fast, driving those tubes that the sound is, I mean, it's really hard to believe. It's like breathing, brings life to anything that, that passes through it. It's amazing. It's something that needs to be heard, to be believed.
Even when it's not compressing, it adds a
vibe.
Yeah. It just adds, like you said,
it
life
brings
to the
all
signal.
that, it's all those tubes and transformers is bringing all that, it's different, it's life into the product.
Yeah, I was interested that there's actually different transformers on the input and the output, different brands and completely different transformers.
Oh yeah, we actually approach a lot of different manufacturers, and there's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different manufacturers for all these transformers. So we had different talks with different people from different factories, just trying to find the right one from every single factory. I mean, and we ended up with the best transformers that money can buy nowadays, just to replicate the unit the best we could. And that's what we did. It's difficult. It makes the supply chain more difficult, but it was worth it. It was totally worth it. So it's transformers from 1, 2, 3 different continents, 4 different countries. But man, it's the way to do it.
Yeah. It, in case you're wondering, with the 2-channel or stereo unit, you've got 22 tubes and 9 transformers. And in the single channel 660, you've got 11 tubes and 5 transformers. So there's lots of iron here, lots of glass here. And man, it's just a beautiful, I was saying earlier, this must have been turned on because this transformer is still hot.
Yeah.
still not warming my hands over here off that. But an interesting thing about these, when you start looking back at what the original Fairchild was, they were really designed for broadcast and for mastering vinyl and cutting lacquer and things. So there's the lat controls and the vert controls that we don't see because, of course, they're dealing with grooves in vinyl.
Oh, yeah. That was the first use, the main use back in the day when they were designing the unit was for that, for controlling the lateral and the vertical movement of the grooves on the vinyl. But then recording in the studios, just saw the unit, tested the unit, and said, this is amazing. So all major studios in the US, especially Capitol and all the other major studios at the time, just began using them for recording. And then places like Abbey Road just took them also, mainly because of Capitol. So the word was spread like really fast into the recording world, and this is the sound that we've heard in a lot of records. It was also used in mastering. It was always in mastering. So probably I would say, maybe 80% of all those classic records were mastered through a 670 at some point.
Yeah.
Either on the mastering process or cutting the vinyls. Yeah, of course.
One of the interesting control features of this is that you don't have a separate ratio and knee control. You've got that progressive ratio control, which is called the DC threshold on this particular unit. Tell us how that works, what that's about.
Well, that's a really interesting control because back in the day, the concept of ratio was still non-existent. That was later. And I don't think they could even think about doing that because that's so precise. So they had a control that was actually an adjustment control inside the unit. there was like a calibration. You can start from a very hard limiting, and then you can make like a variable slope when the curve begins compressing with very low signals, and it gets too limiting when the signal is pretty high, and it gives that Fairchild sound because it's like a progressive ratio. It's not properly a ratio because it's not linear, but it's like a curved slope that sounds so natural. It begins compressing since the beginning. It's not a point when it's compressing or not. It's always compressing something just a little bit, and then suddenly, it gets all these magic compression. And it's, for me, is the sound of the 670. Is that feature together with the fast attack and release. That's the sound that we always heard on those Ringos, toms, and those cymbal splashes and washes, and that kind of pumping is that sound.
Right. When you combine that with the power of that side chain, where you can allow a certain amount of the low frequencies to get through or make it less sensitive to the low frequencies, up to 350 hertz, which is high for that kind of a sidechain thing. But it makes such a difference in being able to control the dynamics while still keeping the bottom end big and round.
Oh yeah, we added that. That's the only thing that wasn't available in the original unit. So we added a sidechain filter. You need to have control of that because otherwise the bass is always controlling the compression. So we added those filters in the sidechain that really helps kicks and basses just to go through without, dominating the compression. So that's the only feature I would say that is new in this unit, and it's something that everybody's gonna, take advantage of.
Yeah, it's really fantastic. It almost makes this capable of doing some tone shaping as well as dynamics control.
Sure. Yeah. Obviously, yeah. Mm-hmm. It's a really cool feature.
Mm-hmm. Now, speaking of tone shaping, we've also got the MotorCity EQ here, and that is also a fascinating processor that has a long heritage.
Oh yeah.
No pun intended.
Okay, got it. So yeah, this was one of the 670 was challenging, but this product was even more challenging because there were no info available anywhere online or any kind of schematics, any kind of anything, because this was an equalizer that was only made inside Motown for Motown. They made just a handful of units. The short story is that Michael Brower had a couple of units that they were servicing in New York. So I always wanted to put my hands on one of those units. And then, so my buddies at Black Lion that were servicing the unit just called me and say, look, we have this unit here. You need to come and, take a look and maybe make a product out of it. But everybody was locked down at the time. I was locked down in Madrid. My other engineer was locked down in Lisbon. You guys were locked down in here. So we developed a system to reverse engineer the unit on Skype, on Zoom.
Wow.
And that was pretty amazing. And we, to make the story short, we got it. We made a lot of back and forth testing, sending files through our unit, through their unit. And it was amazing. It took a while, especially there was a lot of custom components inside. There is 21 inductors and 21 tone capacitors that we needed to figure out who were gonna make that in 2020. That was 2020. But finally the unit came to life. It's an amazing equalizer. Nothing comes close to what you can do with those 7 bands. You can actually shape anything and make anything sound like you want. It's amazing. It sounds amazing.
Yeah, and just adding even one into your mix on the kick drum or on the bass guitar or snare or a guitar or vocal or whatever it might be, it just, brings it, as you have said earlier, it just kind of brings it to life. There's just a vibe to those processors.
Yeah, it's that sound that you are so used to hear on those old records, and you figure out why they sound so great, and mine don't do that. I mean, it's that magic that needs to, to bring life into the recordings.
Right.
That's exactly that.
Yeah. Man, that is so exciting. And also, the other thing I just love about this is that it lets those of us who didn't work at Motown or never will work at Motown or may never even go to Motown have that in our own studios and bring that home and apply it to our recordings.
Oh yeah, it's actually the first time, because the 670, for example, was available to the public. You could purchase one back in the day. The MotorCity EQualizer, you could never buy it.
Right.
It was a private thing that is available to the public for the first time now. So that's something that, I'm really glad to be able to supply your guys, supply customers in general.
Yeah.
It's amazing for me.
Yeah. You could buy a 670, but there were no home studios really in those days, so
Yeah.
not many people did.
Yeah.
Exactly. And original units now are so expensive and so hard to maintain and hard to find. So having a modern version of that is just tremendous. Well, congratulations on those. I mean, it's obvious the amount of work and care and love and passion that went into creating these products, and that just makes them so exciting. I mean, you can feel that vibe.
Oh yeah. Thank you very much. It's my pleasure. I'm really enjoying this long ride of designing gear and making people happy.
Yeah.
And making people sound good. It's really what makes my life happier.
Oh, it's got to be fun and got to be so rewarding. That's wonderful. Well, we can't wait to see what you do next.
Let's see what comes next.
It's great to see you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks
Mitch.
for coming in all the way from Spain to visit us here. We're always happy to have you here at Sweetwater.
Always my pleasure.
Great. We'll see you soon.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for joining us here today at Sweetwater. We've been checking out the Hairchild 670. Of course, 660 is the mono version of that, single channel version, and the MotorCity EQ. These are two products you've got to check out. We've got videos online about both of those. So check those out, and thanks for joining me today. I'm Mitch Gallagher from Sweetwater.